Powerful villains, they are what make the story tense and interesting, and sometimes makes you wonder, can the said villain even be stopped? The example for this is Madara, who became so strong that the fans even started to speculate that Madara would win and this infinite Tsukuyomi would be the ending for the Naruto story. Yuhaba is also another example of this, as he became so strong as the fans didn't know how to kill him, as the same is currently happening in Jujutsu Kaisen. You see, Gojo was always there to solve every problem that we had in the series, and the biggest problem in the series currently is Ryumen Sukuna. And it makes sense as both Gojo and Sukuna were portrayed as equals in the story, but that wasn't very true, as we recently got to see the battle of the strongest of Gojo versus Sukuna, and the victor of the battle was Sukuna. But this battle made many fans call Sukuna a fraud, as he used Maharaga in order to defeat Gojo and cut through his infinity, but that isn't quite true. You see, during their battle, Sukuna could have returned to his Hero form and beaten Gojo anytime he wanted. I won't discuss the topic of Hero Sukuna versus Gojo, as I've already made a video explaining as to how Sukuna would have still won even without Megumi's 10 Shadows technique. And there's a reason why Gojo said that he would have lost to Hero Sukuna even if he didn't have Megumi's 10 Shadows technique. And when someone as prideful as Gojo says that he will have lost to someone, you know he's telling the truth, and there is a very good reason to it. Ryumen Sukuna, the king of curses, was just that strong. And today we are here to discuss who, what, and how strong is Ryumen Sukuna. But before we do start the video, you guys, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more JJK content like this. And until then, let's begin the video. So on to our first question. Who is Ryumen Sukuna? Ryumen Sukuna is a Jujutsu sorcerer of the Heian era, the same era which was called Golden Age of Jujutsu sorcery. And during that time, Sukuna was the strongest, and no one matched him in terms of strength, as the only 1v1 battle that Sukuna had in which he didn't completely outmatch his opponent was his battle against Gojo. Now, as far as Sukuna's backstory goes, you see we don't have much in that regard. But from what information we have gotten from Sukuna himself, which is very little, I've come up with a theory with Sukuna's backstory, and it goes something like this. Sukuna was probably born in a prestigious clan of Jujutsu sorcerer at that time. But Sukuna at the start of his journey as a sorcerer didn't show much potential, as his clansmen, including his parents, would call him a failure. As this would make sense as to why Sukuna called himself the unwanted child or simply the unwanted, and this would make sort of sense as to how he is being called the unwanted one. But I believe that would change as Sukuna would have a similar awakening to Gojo had against Toji, as Sukuna would not only figure out the core of cursed energy, but I believe that ones that would have pushed Sukuna to this awakening would be his own clansmen, and Sukuna being betrayed and getting this massive power up would kill his entire clan, similar to what Maki did. And then Sukuna would travel around the world fighting strong sorcerers, and while doing so, Sukuna's knowledge of Jujutsu sorcery would be unmatched due to how many battles he would have gone through, as during this time, Sukuna would be undefeated, but Sukuna would also have a soft side. You see, I try to make sense as to why Sukuna would hate Yuji so much. I mean, only being a vessel to him should not make Sukuna hate Yuji this much, especially since Sukuna does value strength. And Yuji does get pretty strong and stronger than Jogo, who Sukuna respected up to some extent, and yet he hates Yuji. Why? And the answer I came up while writing this theory was Yuji reminded Sukuna of himself in the past, who was used by others. Now you may wonder, Yuji and Sukuna parallel? No way that's gonna happen, man. But you see, you might be wrong, as we'll now continue our story. Sukuna would help others, and he would be seen as a god. a good one at that. As Ryomen, the last name of Sukuna, literally translates to two-faced in Japanese. And this could be Geki's way to tell us Sukuna has two sides to him. In his battle against Kashimo, Sukuna did tell Kashimo that he understood love very well. And that might be true as the people love Sukuna, but it would change as a bunch of sorcerers would team up. And I'm talking about the sorcerers from the Heian era here, where being a special grade is normal, and he's of a special grade sorcerer would leave Sukuna close to death, as I believe that at Sukuna's last moments, the sorcerers who killed him would curse Sukuna. But unlike how Yuta cursed Rika with love, in case of Sukuna, it would be negative emotions like hate, jealousy, as they believed when Sukuna would be reborn as a curse, he would be weaker, but they were in for a rude awakening. Sukuna's rebirth would be strange. Sukuna would somehow manage to stop his evolution into a full curse and become a demon that we know him as today. The Sukuna with 4 eyes, 4 arms, and 2 mouths, as this version of Sukuna would be more deadly, more vicious, but most importantly, broken and evil. As without a second thought, Sukuna would kill all of those sorcerers, except one sorcerer would manage to escape, and then Sukuna would start doing whatever he wanted, killing, eating humans, making slaves. He would do anything that he wanted because he was the strongest. And the name Fallen was given to Sukuna, who, from being a decent human being and the most powerful sorcerer of the Heian era, became the king of curses. Eventually, Sukuna would meet Kenjaku and make a binding vow with him of some sort, as we still don't know what kind of binding vow was made between Sukuna and Kenjaku in the Heian era, so I'll have to pause on that. But outside of that, Sukuna would be feared throughout the lands, as no one would even dare to oppose him, as they knew what fate they would suffer if they did. But in the shadows, there would be 3 families that would not go and would not let the reign of the King of Curses go on forever. You see, I previously mentioned that one of the sorcerers that teamed up and killed Sukuna in his human form escaped, and I believe one of these sorcerers would be from one of these families, and specifically the Zenin family, as the families would send their strongest warriors to fight against Sukuna, a user of the 6 eyes and limitless, a wielder of the 10 shadows technique, and the wielder of blood manipulation, would fight Sukuna, and despite all 3 of them dying in the end, they would manage to kill Sukuna. And then, in the honor of killing the tyrant, also known as Sukuna, these 3 clans would be called the 3 great families of Jujutsu, as they would have the most influence over the Jujutsu society. But even though Sukuna was killed, his powers were still feared, as Sukuna would have divided his power and soul into 20 of his fingers, these fingers being so powerful that no one, and I mean no one, could destroy them. And there always was the looming threat of Sukuna being brought back to life, and one man in particular wanted Sukuna back more than anyone else. So he planned the return for him by making a perfect vessel for him in the form of Yuji Itadori. And now we are in the current timeline of the story. Now, as to how strong Sukuna is, and by what feats Sukuna has already shown, he's already the strongest in the entire series. His physical abilities exceed that of a person having heavenly restriction like Toji and Maki. His curse energy is more than Yuta. Mind you, Yuta has more curse energy than Gojo, and his refinement of his techniques and his knowledge on Jujutsu is unmatched. And finally, his uses of the curse energy is comparable to Gojo's. The same Gojo who has the 6 eyes and limitless, which provide the user such control over their cursed energy that whenever they use their curse technique, they use so little of their cursed energy that it is close to 0. And Sukuna matched that without any kind of help, just his own refinement. And his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine, is the most refined domain in the entire series, as it doesn't have a barrier, as the domain without a barrier is considered ungodly. In this domain, Sukuna continuously attacks his opponents with two cursed energy techniques, and those are Cleave and Dismantle, in which Dismantle attacks opponents with slash attacks, which cannot be seen, and Cleave attacks opponent according to their cursed energy. Sukuna also has a fire ability that he used to defeat Maharaga, and this fire ability is or even might be stronger than Gojo's red. And that is all the info we have currently given on Sukuna. Let me tell you, this is all info we only have right now, as it is heavily implied that Sukuna still has more techniques to show us, proving that this motherfucker cannot be beaten. Like, I'm generally concerned as to how Gege will kill Sukuna without breaking the power scaling of the series, as we really don't want to see Gege breaking the power scaling of the story just in order to kill a villain, as Jujutsu Kaisen has been a series who stays consistent with its power scaling and makes sense to everything that happens. But what do you guys think? Is my theory of Sukuna valid? Or do you think it's something else? Comment down below, as I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. And while you're down there, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more JJK content. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Man, I'm generally concerned as to how anyone will beat this motherfucker. Like, this guy is too powerful for the damn series.